Hello everyone and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I have 3 cards to share with you which I created for the Waffle Flower April 2023 release and blog hop. Now I hope that you enjoyed the blog hop and that you played along for the gift certificate. Um, in the meantime, the winner already has been decided, so really sorry that my video is only up right now. But there was just so much happening that I was already happy to share the 3 cards with you, and if you like them, then today's video will show exactly how they all came together. So for the release from Waffle Flowers, I got a few products from the incredible release. I must admit, I was immediately in love with all of the products that I got. I don't have a lot of butterfly products, but truly what I'm using today, it just blew my mind. It's so creative. They think of everything, and it was just tons of fun. Now, before starting with all of the butterfly gorgeousness, I am first going to share this really subtle but fun background die. This is the tiny crosses texture die, and I must admit that this die lends itself towards so many different occasions. It's a really fun random background. I love the crosses on it. I created a love themed card because I also had these hearts from Waffle Flower from the Window Trio 2 die. And so I could combine several products together, and that's something that I really love. The other thing that I used today was the Cutaway Alpha die. It's an incredible, cool die in my opinion. You have these slim letters. I have had them for a while now, and I actually lost a bit of track when it comes to this alphabet die, so I'm glad to showcase it today on this card as well. Now, I decided to go with the sentiment "Love you tons," and then have a heart accent on the center part of my card. So here I'm just going to add the final word. I decided to go word by word while die cutting it to make sure that I had right spacing going on everywhere. I used my T-square ruler, my triangle here to really make sure that it was kind of straight. The alphabet is wonky, so you will get away with it if you have a tiny slip up somewhere, but I tried to go as straight as possible. Now for the hearts, originally I thought of doing these 2 hearts, maybe vellum, and then I thought, well, maybe I can just play a bit with these pink and red colors and create something a bit extra. So I went for 1 vellum, 1 red heart, and 1 really bright pink heart, and I'm going to add them on top of each other. I scored them all in the center, and now I'm just making sure that I am going over that fold, and then we will adhere them all to the card, but just have this fun element that you will see all of the colors at one side of the heart. Once I decided upon these colors, I also decided that I wanted to try to create my 3 cards with these colors. So there are so many ways to recreate cards or elements of cards as I'm showing today, but I'm going to use these specific colors every time over and over, the inks, the papers, and I got tons of lovely reactions on my blog post that it was actually, even though it was with butterflies, they all could go for like Valentine's themed cards, and I really loved actually that comment. Because I actually didn't thought about them as being Valentine's kind of cards. So it actually gives me tons of more possibilities, and that's really fun. So, well, I knew that this one was love themed kind of, but the others, I'm really glad that I can use them for more occasions than what I had in my head. So here I just made sure to add as much foam tape as possible to the back of my panels. And then I'm going to pop it on top of a white card base, and it will give me a bit more of dimension, also a few shadows here and there, because I just have a sentiment on a panel, so this gives it a bit more. And that is going to be my first card. If you want to, you can embellish. If you have lovely critters, you can add them. Even if you want to, you don't need to add the heart, but if you have this window die, I really love it. You can also use it as a window. Of course, the window 302 die, it's perfect as a window, and the design team and other guest designers made some incredible cards, so definitely check those out if you haven't yet. So for my second card, I'm going to use the duotone butterfly stencil duo. Now you can perfectly combine the stencil with the pop-up butterfly panel die. So I'm just showing it here. It's the perfect match, really genius. But I'm going to use them separately. So I will first use the stencil, and then I will use the die in another way. So I hope that this way you might have another idea even than what was maybe intended or what was already in your head to use it for. So whenever I am stenciling, you can use several mats to go underneath your paper, but if I have multiple stencils, I really love the technique that I saw once in the past by Carissa Wiley, where she was using her Misty, and actually you just make sure that your paper is in one corner, you put the stencil in the same corner, and then when you put your second stencil, your third, your fourth stencil on top, you just make sure that that paper is again in the same corner, that that other stencil is also in that same corner, and you have the perfect lineup. It's genius, and I love it for that. So as I said, I'm reusing the combinations. I first tried to use the really soft ballet slipper ink, but it just wasn't showing. It can be that my ink cube is a bit dry. So I ended up for this card using just the bright pink and then the red. But you know, you can do rainbow here, you can do the butterflies in one color each. You can go really soft, you can do yellow, spring vibe, tons of possibilities. So I also tried, it was not always that visible, but I also tried to sort of add a bit more pink and red on the bottom of each butterfly and then just blend it out. But well, my red was really moist here, so most of the red wings were completely red, perfectly fine as well. And then I ended up also adding a bit of pink on the top part mostly of all of the wings here. So this is a really bright background actually, and that was also something that got me thinking when I wanted to create it into a card. So as you can see, you can also always go back if you need to, just put it in that same corner, make sure that it's all there in that one corner and you're just fine. So a basic that I use on all of the three cards is this A2 layers die, a really genius die. You have tons of rectangles. There is also the additional A2 layers die. I love them because it's subtle, but it really helps you so great with cutting it to the perfect size. So therefore I use it to frame out everything on each of these three cards. So sentiment-wise, there are these wonderful sentiments, Fluttering by sentiments and matching dies from Waffle Flowers. I love all of them. I tried to add as much as I could on this tiny piece of paper, stamp everything out, die cut everything, and just have all of these possibilities ready to go for my cards. As you probably know already, when I create cards, I don't think ahead of everything, and most of the time that gives me some issues when it comes to adding a sentiment. The lovely thing about these sentiments is that there are matching dies, and for me it was really a lifesaver for the cards, because I could just stem them all out, die cut them, and then later on see what was going to fit and what sentiment wasn't. So really lovely this. I was really enjoying my crafty time when I created these cards. There we go. So sentiments ready. I just needed some color around the panel, and I thought here that I would use that really soft pink. The background was really bright, so if you have a really bright background and you're doubting whether the sentiment will still stand out, try some vellum. So I must admit that I really loved the way that the vellum softened the butterflies and then add the sentiment, but I didn't want to cover it all. You can if you want to, but I didn't want to. So I ended up taking that window 302 die again, but this time I cut the butterflies out of vellum, and I ended up adding them a bit randomly on top of my background, and then on one of them my sentiment was going to overhang and give it a bit of extra. To adhere the vellum on top of the panel without seeing the adhesive, I used this machine that I have had for like crazy long time and I barely use it. So I made some kind of stickers with it, and so I could add all of the butterflies. Of course, one was overlapping, so I created another one. It's always like that, that there is one that isn't working with me, but I just put it in too quickly. No biggie. So I'm just making sure that I have them a bit randomly. I don't want them to align. I don't want them to have the same angle. So that's something that I try to avoid because it just gives something fun to it all. And then the third one on the top. Now the sentiment I'm still going to change. Truly it wasn't, as I said, a not really planned out card as always, so I was really glad that I could still play a bit with the sentiments that I had on the side. So I ended up using the Fluttering by to say hello, but just to give me a bit of help with dimension, I die cut it 2 more times, just the die cut, to put it behind my sentiment. So I'm just doing that here with some liquid glue, and then I can add it to the card. I'm also going to embellish this card. I just used some really subtle, tiny iridescent bubbles to help me give it a bit more playfulness over this whole panel. So once I had decided upon that, I'm going to add it with some liquid glue, and then I ended up changing the color around this panel. So the pink was just a bit too pink, and something that I really love doing also when I'm coloring with Copics or anything like that is to have some colors return. So I went for the pink and the red cardstock to see which one was going better. I must admit you can perfectly use either one of them, and I contemplated quite a long time. And then you have the husband that is next to me that I could ask, which one do you prefer? And then he would say, well, I don't know, you decide, you make the cards. And then he's no help at all, so I end up not asking and just going for the pink. Yes, so I am adding my adhesive roller here. I'm just adding a piece of paper that is bigger than what I need so that I can trim off all of the excess and have the perfect size of this colored cardstock without having a sliver that is too short or too long. Just trim it off like that. And then I can add the panel on top. I am here again going to use some foam tape, and once I have covered the whole back, I'm just going to remove the backings and add this panel on top of my card base, and I have my second card ready. I think this card took me the most time just to figure out how I was going to turn it into a card, but I'm really glad that I used that vellum to just give it a bit of extra really subtle butterflies on the back. For the third card, and I think the most impressive card personally, I'm using the pop-up butterfly panel die. One that I saw in the comments was definitely one of the favorites from the whole release, and I completely get it because it really gives you tons of possibilities, and I'm only showing you one of them. So to have a bit of fun in the background, you can definitely use pattern paper as well. I created my own pattern paper, again using those pink colors that I used on the first cards, but this time also a bit of gold glitter cardstock, totally optional but always fun if you have a slight sliver of glitter here and there. So I made sure to have some full sticky paper on top of just some printer paper. This makes sure that the whole package that you want to die cut later on isn't going to be too thick. Because if you use a thick cardstock and then you're going to add your colored cardstock that already has some weight as well, it might be really difficult to get it through your die cutting machine, to get your dies to cut it completely through. So just to avoid that, just use some leftover paper, really thin printer paper, and you will be fine. So I made sure to, well, fill that sticky paper completely with my slivers, and then I took once more the A2 layers die to help me, and as you can see later on there will be this border once I'm going to adhere my butterfly panel on top. So something that I decided to do was to lift up all of the wings from the butterflies. I first thought of doing a few, so I went really randomly over this panel, but I ended up liking the idea of judging everything, as Laura Fedora would say. So I just went for it and lifted all of the wings up. The lovely thing about this is that you will be able to see that gorgeous pattern paper that you created or that you're using in the back. You will be able to see it. Now again, as I said in the beginning, you can also combine this pop-up butterfly panel die with the stencil, and then you have these colorful butterflies that are lifted up or not. You don't need to lift the wings if you don't want to, but definitely tons of possibilities with this amazing panel die. Now here again for the sentiment of the thought, as always, I knew that I had all of these sentiments still left over after stamping and die cutting them for my second card, so I just needed to figure out which one was going to work the best. Also, with all of the wings lifted up, it wasn't going to be an easy thing to add them, but you don't need to lift up all of the wings. Again, you can lift a few up and then you have tons of areas to put it. I'm going to use some dimensional adhesive to make sure that there is still that playful lifted up butterfly wings going behind it. So as you could see, I just added these two colors that I use all over my cards behind the dreams do come true, and I shifted them slightly to the bottom so that you can still see it really subtly, but you can see the shadows of it. So here I was figuring out where I needed to add my adhesive to make sure that I still could have all of the dimension of the butterflies as well. And then I'm going to add it again as straight as possible, so I'm using my triangle here to help me with that. And then I can add this panel to my colorful background. This time I'm using some liquid glue. I wasn't going to cut all of my dimensions to go behind like that. I think liquid glue is the perfect choice here to help you as well. So I'm just lining it up in the center, and then I need to add this to a card base. And then I have my third card ready. You can also use some embellishment here if you want to. That's all up to you, but really just have fun with these products. I saw tons of lovely reactions, tons of people who purchased these products specifically as well. So I hope that this video and maybe my blog post can help you with some inspiration. I had tons of fun creating all of them, so I hope that you can see that in this video. I was also really pleased and happy and honored to have been a guest designer for this amazing release. Really thank you at Waffle Flowers for asking me. And these are again my 3 cards. So that's it for today. To all of you, thank you so much for still being here and watching this video. I have been away for a while. I'm trying to catch up with the videos that I want to share with you along with the cards. But until then, I really hope that you all have an incredible crafty time, that you're all doing well, and I promise I'll be back soon with some more inspiration. Bye!